going on, everyone? Jax here. Apologies for the wind, but I am at the beach with the all-new 2021 Ford Bronco, and this review is going to be really about what it's like to live with the Ford Bronco, because we drove it 6 hours down to the beach. We're heading home, and then I'm taking it to the North Georgia mountains. So if you want to know what it's like to live with the Ford Bronco, stick around. I don't really have anything clever here to say at the beginning like I normally do. Flat out, this is one of the most desirable and hotly anticipated vehicles on sale today. Unless, of course, you own a Wrangler, in which case you're probably watching this video on your phone while you're sitting in the dealership waiting room. What's going on, everyone? Jax here, and today I have the 2021 Ford Bronco Outer Banks. By the way, guys, if you want to stand out from the crowd and you want everybody in a relatively sort of wealthy area to look at you and to like neck snap, oh my gosh, what is that? Then you need to drive a Ford Bronco, honestly. No one cares about anything else down here. We're one of like 2 Broncos that I've seen down here, and everybody asks about it. Is that the new Ford Bronco? Are you driving the new Ford Bronco? Is this your Ford Bronco? Tell me about the Ford Bronco. This car gets so much attention in a place where you can see pretty much every kind of car, but everybody wants to know about this one. So let's talk about this for a second before I hand it over to Mrs. Jax, because she really likes this vehicle. Driving down here, the Bronco was surprisingly comfortable, honestly. You don't have a ton of room inside. In the front seats, you have plenty of room. I have no trouble getting a good driving position. Ride on the highway, exceptional for a vehicle of this kind. You get a little bit of sort of surface roughness from the more off-road biased tires that are a little harder, but the suspension compliance is great. Tech features is great. This is a loaded Outer Banks edition, so you're getting a lot of stuff in this that makes it sort of long-term comfortable. We had to be judicious with our luggage selection, we'll say that, but we were able to fit what we needed for a couple days down here, no problem. Keep in mind, Ella was not with us, which would have increased packing considerably for an almost 16-year-old, but we were able to get everything fit into the back of the Bronco. I think I even have a picture of it here. You can see it on Instagram. And so we made it work. The only negative I would say over sort of long-term cruising is a bit of wind noise. This one is equipped with the soft top. I personally would order the insulated hard top. I think it would fit our family better, but if you're not considering road tripping this car, the soft top is fine. I just put a podcast on and enjoyed that. Gas mileage is not so good. We were seeing under 20 miles per gallon, and that was with long highway stretches. This is the turbo 4-cylinder, not the turbo V6. I doubt that would have been much better. Power is adequate. I didn't have a problem with the power, but the gas mileage is a little rough. The fuel tank, however, is quite large, so the range was like huge, which is pretty impressive. I was not expecting that. So overall, this was a pretty exceptional road trip vehicle, way exceeded my expectations for a vehicle of this kind. I'm gonna go take this thing to fill up, so I'm gonna hand it over to Mrs. Jax to get her thoughts, and then I will catch you guys back in Atlanta.
Hello, Mrs. Jax here. Been a long time since I've been in a video. This car is like freaking awesome. Car, I guess you can't really call it a car. SUV, the Ford Bronco. We brought it down to the beach, and I have never been in a car where so many people are like, oh my God, cool car, man. Love that car. I'm like walking down the street and there's people stopped at our car like looking at it. So if you want some like cool points, this is the car for you. And actually, I didn't think I was gonna like it as much. Like, I like a fun, cool car, but I was like, I could actually own this car and drive it every day. It's that cool. We drove all the way down, like 6 hours, and it's comfortable. The seats are nice. My kid had enough space in the back. It's not a ton of cargo space, but enough if you're not like, bringing a whole bunch of stuff with you. The outside just looks really cool. I want it in that, what's it called? The alien number?
Area 51.
I want it in that alien color, because that looks super cool. And I want the bigger version, right? The Sasquatch.
Yep.
But it's just like super cool, but like cool. It skates a fine line between being really cool and being like a car that like I could drive every day. The kids love it. My 15-year-old daughter wants it, and it's just great. The screen on the inside's like bigger than me, which is really cool. So that's fun to like look at all the stuff, and it's a great little car, and I think lots of people around are enjoying it, and it's kind of fun to be in a car that's different and has some cool history to it. So 2 thumbs up for me.
What is going on? I am in the mountains of North Georgia with the Bronco. So we have gone from sea to land, like tall land. And I've been kind of bombing around some trails that I don't really have any idea where I am, but I'm just using Google Maps and finding some cool roads. And the Bronco has acquitted itself extremely well. I mean, I haven't gotten out of 4 high. This is a test vehicle after all, so we're not going crazy here. But the Bronco is dispatching these trails, and the best part I think about the Bronco is the on-road ride when you are done with the trails. So I'm doing some of these trails, going up some kind of like washboard surfaces through some kind of dirt, mud, stuff like that, and then coming out onto like a freshly paved mountain road. The Bronco just resumes comfortable cruising mode. I put it back into 2 high, and the kind of comfortable suspension takes the edge off, and we're back to cruising around looking for the next adventure. So I think that's where the Bronco really shines, in that kind of like on-road, off-road capability that maybe is a bit better than something like in a Jeep Wrangler. But this thing is a blast. Nothing phases it. Like I said, we're not going crazy here, but we've definitely gotten dirty. So let's keep going and see what else we can find. Guys, look at this spot. If this isn't what the Ford Bronco is all about, I don't know what is. I literally, and I mean this like quite literally, have no idea where I am right now. In fact, on Google Maps, the road sort of ended and it didn't really end. So we're just using the Bronco to explore the North Georgia wilderness and cross over little rivers and streams and all the kind of Bronco-y things that you would do with a vehicle of this kind. And I gotta tell you, like, this is awesome. It's like 60 degrees. It's a beautiful day at the end of the Thanksgiving week when, I'm filming this. You're seeing this whenever. You're seeing this in 2052, and I'm probably dead. But whatever, this is what life is all about with the Bronco. And man, it makes this pleasant. The suspension damping is so impressive over some of these horrible washboard roads. I was up with Toyota a couple weeks ago, last month really, and that was one of the things that the TRD Pro models handle very well. And this Outer Banks trim, which is not even like nearly the highest spec off-road trim, definitely doesn't have the Sasquatch package, is doing an incredibly admirable job soaking up these really challenging surfaces. Not challenging roads, we're not like going crazy here, but we'll say challenging surfaces, and it is a ton of fun. What more could really be said about the Bronco's styling? Let's just be straight up, it's fantastic. It gets looks everywhere it goes, even out here in the woods of North Georgia. Everybody wants to give it a thumbs up, stop and talk about it. I've had more gas station conversations in the past 2 weeks about this than pretty much any other car I've ever had. It perfectly blends the past with the present, and it looks sort of retro while still being practical enough to enjoy every single day. Ford knocked it out of the park with this one, and because of its sort of rareness and newness, it still captures people's attention in a really fun way, and everyone has a positive reaction to it. Even though this Outer Banks trim is sort of the more livable trim, right? It's not the kind of crazy Sasquatch equipped off-road package. It's a more livable trim, but people still love it. Dare I say, in a way that they might not respect like a really base level Wrangler. This Outer Banks trim is powered by a 2.3-liter turbo 4-cylinder, making 300 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque when filled with premium. Power is sent to the ground via all 4 wheels through a 10-speed automatic. However, in most trims equipped with this engine, a 7-speed manual is available. This Outer Banks trim, despite its sort of more on-road biased tires, is equipped with the upgraded 4-wheel drive system, which includes a locking rear differential, as well as a sort of 4-wheel drive automatic mode that shuffles the power around between 2 and 4 wheels as needed. Here in the mountains off-roading, I never really went out of 4 high. I only turned it into 4 low when we crossed a sort of deeper stream. Other than that, it's been pretty much 4 high the whole time and has had zero problem. I haven't had to engage any of the fancy goat modes or anything like that. That's not what I'm up here to do, and also this isn't my Bronco, so we're gonna take it easy. But this is an extremely capable sort of machine, even in its baser level trim. Let me put it this way, it's more than enough to tackle the trails that I've had it on up here in North Georgia. And with these tires, you're probably more likely to run out of straight up tire grip than you are needing a more advanced 4-wheel drive system. If that's what you're into, go ahead and spec the Badlands trim with the Sasquatch package, and then you could pretty much just drive like straight off that way and you'll probably be fine. What's going on, guys? Jax here, and I'm including this in the main video of the Bronco because I am running out of time. I've had this Bronco for a while now, and I am running out of time to get this driving portion done. So I'm actually on the way to work, and I'm gonna knock out this driving. We're not on the handling road right now. We're actually on the road that my neighborhood is off of, and there is a little bit of jittering here because the Bronco has these sort of like kind of, you know, harder off-road bias tires. They're really street tires, you know, SUV street tires, but they're a little firmer than what you'd find on your average sports car. And so you get some of that kind of vibration transmitted thanks to the tires, even though the suspension is actually quite supple. Now, as we pull out there into traffic, one thing to note is that this has the smaller turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. And I have driven this Bronco probably about as much as any reviewer out there. I've driven it 6 hours to the beach and back home. I spent all day yesterday driving it back and forth to the mountains. And one of the things that I will absolutely say is that for a lot of people, the 4-cylinder is probably enough. Like, it's got enough power and torque. The Bronco doesn't feel fast with this engine, but it's not slow. It's not so slow that it can't get out of its own way, and I think that's an important distinction. And so if you're worried about the Turbo 4 in the Bronco, don't be. It was enough in the mountains. It was enough kind of doing light off-roading. I would only really think that you have to get the V6 if you are considering doing some like really heavy off-roading, especially up like steep inclines or something. But if you're just kind of getting this for an activity vehicle, you might be happy enough with the 4-cylinder. I have been averaging in the 21 miles per gallon range and sort of mixed driving. Now, there's a fair amount of highway driving built into that number, but I still think that's decent for what the Bronco is. When I was purely on the highway yesterday, I was getting around 23 miles per gallon, but that's about as high as I could get it. Around town and stop and go like this, you're looking at more like high teens. Again, it's not awful, but it's not great considering it's a Turbo 4. Now, while I'm sitting here at this light, let me mention the sort of ambient noise that you hear, because you might actually hear more of it than in my normal kind of talking to camera car review parts. Is it bad? No, it's not bad. Do you hear a lot more of the outside world with the soft top on? Yeah, sure. I've seen some people complain about it in some reviews. My argument is, if you're the type of person who is surprised by a fair amount of ambient noise driving a soft top off-roader, then you probably would rather have a Bronco Sport. I reviewed the Bronco Sport a while back, and it is very underrated in my opinion. I think a lot of people give it a sort of unfair amount of hate because it's not a real Bronco and it's based on the Ford Escape. But the Bronco Sport is a really good small SUV in a lot of ways. I really liked it, honestly. And if you go into it with your expectations in check, I think you might find a lot to like about the Bronco Sport too. So if you're the kind of person who would be offended by this amount of ambient noise, you're probably the kind of person who should be driving a Bronco Sport, if I'm being honest, and not worrying about this unless you want this lifestyle vehicle, in which case, shut up about the ambient noise. Okay, something to note, just in case you're wondering, sun visor, if you're tall, blocks like half the windshield. So I can only see the car directly in front of me, and I can't really see anything up ahead because the windshield's too vertical and I can't extend the sun visor anymore. Not ideal. Now let's talk about the Bronco's sort of on-road dynamic abilities. I think that as a daily driver, this is, in my opinion, perfectly acceptable. The steering is very nice thanks to that independent front suspension. It's reasonably quick off center. The wheel itself is kind of nice and small, and I really like it, to be honest, although the materials could feel a little bit better. The gas pedal is responsive. The 10-speed automatic transmission, in all of the miles I've driven, I would estimate I've driven around 800 miles in this thing, give or take. And the automatic transmission has rarely missed a step. There has been very few times where I caught it in the wrong gear or wished it was in a different gear. So like, I'm very impressed with the way this transmission is tuned with this engine. Brake pedal feel is like non-existent. It's like stepping on a wet noodle. But the abilities of the brake is totally fine. Like, it brakes hard, very easy to modulate in sort of downhill grades and stuff like that. So I got no complaints about the braking ability. I just think the pedal feels kind of, bushy. But that's not really a complaint in a vehicle such as this, maybe in a sports car, but not a Bronco. I'm really impressed with the way the front end sort of tracks through turns. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not talking about like a BMW M3 or something, but this is a high-riding truck-based SUV. And it sort of bends into turns like really nice and quickly. And there's a little bit of like fun. I was on a gravel trail and you can kind of slide it around a little bit and feel like you're in control. Everything works really well together. It drives really, really well. I love the damping on sort of normal roads like this. It's really good. You get that vibration texture transmitted via the tires. I wonder if the Sasquatch ones would actually be more forgiving in a way. I'm not sure. But the suspension damping and the control of the body is excellent. I mean, that bridge I just went over, you can get a significant bounce in a too softly sprung car. And this thing was like, it was almost like controlled, like sporty in its control of the body. I mean, I barely moved up and down going across that bridge. There's just a lot to kind of applaud about the way that this thing operates. And hats off to Ford. I give them a lot of credit for really dialing this thing in a fun and responsive way. Now let's talk about a couple negatives because, it's not perfect. The seats are great, very comfortable and supportive, not a lot of like bolstering. The materials in here are fine. I don't really have a problem with the materials. I think the layout, the sort of ergonomics are really good, but I will complain about this gauge cluster. This gauge cluster is weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's got a strange screen in the middle. It's got your information to the right, and it's got like your lane keep assist. It's just kind of a mess. And then you have this analog speedometer to the left, which is replicated in the center screen. And I don't really understand that choice, especially considering that Ford has some vehicles like the new F-150 that have really good kind of gauge clusters and screens. So I'm not really sure what's going on here, if like a cooler thing wouldn't fit. It just seemed, I don't know, a bit odd. I like the grab handles on the side of the dash. I do wish, and I know Mrs. Jax would probably appreciate that, if it had a grab handle up here on the A pillar. I think that would be slightly more useful for shorter people than the ones on the side of the dash. I guess you could kind of swing yourself into the seat, but for me, it's useless. I would barely use one on the A pillar, but side of the dash is not really useful at all. But I mean, other than that, this thing, if you are buying it as an activity vehicle and you're not expecting some kind of like faux level of luxury or something like that, this thing is pretty great. Like, I really like it. I've always wanted, irrationally, like a Jeep Wrangler, jacked up, unlimited, with the 4 doors and the roof and everything off. And I never even seriously considered it, A, because of the price, and B, because it just felt so ridiculously impractical that I just could never imagine owning one. I 100% could imagine owning this. And I like the way this looks even better, and I'm sure that this drives even better. I haven't driven the new Wrangler. Like I said, I'm gonna be fair here and not say that it's absolutely better, because I haven't driven the new Wrangler, but everything I've read comparing the two says that this drives better. And more crucially, even though a jacked up Badlands Sasquatch package is darn near 60 grand, Mrs. Jax likes this, and I'd have a much easier time convincing her that this is the way to go. Also, one last thing I will mention, and then we'll get back to other talking head me. This is probably spec'd the way a lot of people would spec this thing. You've got the turbocharged 4-cylinder, you've got all of the tech and luxury packages, you've got the more sort of on-road bias tires with the soft top, and I think a lot of people would be really happy with the way that this thing goes about its day-to-day chores, responsibilities. I know we are, or we have been, or we still are. Well, depending on when you watch this. All right, back to the review. In this Outer Banks trim, you also get the leather and vinyl seats, which are heated thanks to the luxury package. The luxury package also gets you a heated steering wheel, although I wish it kind of came with cooled seats as well, because when we were down at the beach, man, this thing has a lot of glass and those seats got hot. The luxury package also gets you a 360-degree camera, which has been incredibly useful out here on some of these narrow trails, as well as the Bang & Olufsen sound system, which, because of the fair amount of wind noise that comes through the soft top, I would kind of recommend. I know that it sort of is par for the course with a vehicle of this kind, but it is substantial above 70 miles an hour, so it's nice having sort of a equally substantial stereo system to match it or drown it out. The massive 12-inch touchscreen infotainment system, along with the wireless phone charger, is also standard with the luxury package, which is really nice because it means even in this sort of like off-road fun and kind of crazy outdoor vehicle, you still get a lot of the tech and features that most people demand. Is it a little plasticky inside? Well, yes. Will most people care? No, they won't. The seats are incredibly comfortable for longer journeys, and they fit me and Mrs. Jax fine. And the back seat is, well, let's say, roomy enough for our girls. Outward visibility is decent with the soft top. There's a lot of glass, and thanks to the Bronco's sort of slab-sided design, you can see around you. The mirrors are a bit small, but you've got the 360-degree camera if you get the luxury package. It also has a very usable 35.6 cubic feet of cargo space behind that second row, and a whopping 77.6 cubic feet of space if you fold the second row down. And in case you're wondering, that's about 5 cubic feet more cargo space in both measurements than you would get in a Wrangler. Passenger volume is also larger than the Wrangler. Now, this is a slightly larger vehicle, and you might notice it on the trails, but I would take that trade-off considering that the Bronco is equally capable. That rear glass kind of shaking, though, with the soft top is a little bit of a downside when you close the door. It's especially noticeable on the passenger doors, but it is what it is when you have a frameless window design. It's inevitable that, given enough time, you will compare the Bronco to its nearest rival, the Jeep Wrangler. And Ford went hard here on Jeep, really throwing the kitchen sink at the Bronco, giving it an independent front suspension, making it drive better. I know Jeep people might use it against the Bronco for its off-road credibility, but I would challenge anyone, save for like ultra hardcore off-roaders, to notice a difference between the two. Ford also gave the Bronco a ton of technology and making it more sort of generally useful than some of what you might find in a Jeep. Now, I haven't tested the new Jeep yet, so I'm gonna reserve a final judgment, but Sync 4 works really well, especially with Apple CarPlay, and the Bronco is just a really pleasant thing to use every day. Ford's kind of current suite of infotainment is really strong. Ford also made the Bronco big enough that a family such as ours with two very tall children could consider buying something like a really fun lifestyle vehicle over something like a Kia Telluride. Would the Kia Telluride maybe fit our family a little bit better? Sure, but Mrs. Jax really liked this Bronco. And it's impossible to ignore the Bronco's sort of charisma. The options list that Ford offers is also very extensive, and one needn't spend everything that they have in order to get an incredibly capable off-road version. Ford is also introducing more and more options and amenities as the Bronco kind of goes through its model year run, which I think is super cool and shows their dedication to this growing Bronco community that they've created. And as I mentioned earlier, I think your sort of on-road biased Bronco trims like this Outer Banks edition don't sort of scream poser as much as their sort of Jeep counterparts. I know that's a completely subjective opinion, but I think this Outer Banks trim still looks sort of purposeful enough that people don't go, oh, you just got the cheap one and you're just taking the doors off to like drive around the neighborhood. So how much did we love the Bronco? Well, I really like it. I like this car a lot. And Mrs. Jax really liked it too. As I mentioned a second ago, she wants to replace our 2012 Suburban with a sort of smaller, more useful vehicle since we don't need all that space. And we had been considering something like a Kia Telluride, but she's definitely partial to this Bronco now. The Bronco's combination of style and substance made an impression on her, and it has us both wondering if maybe we could give up some of that passenger and cargo space for a more fun, lifestyle-oriented vehicle. I can't promise that's what we'll do, but unlike the Kia Telluride, which I respect, the Ford Bronco appeals to both of us sort of emotionally. Seriously, you guys know I respect the Telluride. It is the best three-row crossover SUV on the market still. But guys, this Bronco is an absolute blast, and I hope that this sort of sea to mountains review has somehow captured that. If you're on the fence when it comes to the Ford Bronco, don't be. If you can find one, buy it. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this review. This car is a ton of fun, and unlike the Genesis GV70, which you've probably already seen that review before this car appeals to that sort of carnal, emotional side to you. Is it as objectively good as the Genesis GV70? Absolutely not. The GV70 is incredible. That's the best small luxury SUV that you can buy right now. But do I deeply, deeply want one of these Broncos in that alien skin color with the Sasquatch package and the full complement of four-wheel drive systems in the Badlands trim? You bet your I do. Whether I get one or not, I can't say for sure. But if I do, I will document every step of the way here on the channel. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you found value or entertainment in this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and until next time, ride safe, drive safe, especially off-road, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace. Okay, I'm just documenting this in case I get murdered and disappear. I just ran into a older couple where I was filming out in the middle of nowhere who came up, and the lady was filming me saying that this was their valley and people come here to rob them and murder their animals, and they wanted to document me and what I'm doing. Definitely gives off a little bit of a creepy vibe. If you've ever seen Ozark, you know Jacob's wife, the country guy, like Jacob's wife who like kills him and kills everybody else? Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I was getting. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. So I'm done filming and I'm gonna get out of here, like now, before I end up in a poppy field. It'd be nice if this idiot in front of me would pull up so I'm not hanging out in the turn lane here. Thanks, bro, for being aware of others in your BMW 650i convertible, which is a stupid car. Oh, you want to do a U-turn in your BMW 650i? You are the worst person imaginable. God, I hate you. This entire driving portion is going to be stationary and stop and go traffic. Wow. Cool Z, bro.